The great thing with Mary is she is very aware of industry trends. So as we had to make difficult decisions, there were no surprises. Mary had stuff on her radar that was coming down the pike in the next year or two. And so she could really come to the board with time on our hands, with thoughtful decisions. So just an example of that, in the late 2010s, Medicaid rules changed. And so we used to be structured with in-house case management that could recommend in-house services. That had to change. There were multiple options with where we could go, but Mary knew up front it was changing. And so we really had, I think, at least a year where she said, well, let's think about this option. Let's think about this option. And we could finally come to what made the most sense for the agency. But I think it was really her awareness of what's going on in the industry that allowed us to have the time to deliberate.
Yeah, Mary was always a very strong executive director, and I always trusted her recommendations. You know, many times I would say, well, Mary, what's your recommendation on this matter? And so I think being in the field for so long, she was our trusted expert when it comes to all things community opportunities. And so I saw how much she enjoyed serving the clients and definitely being a part of our community.
Yeah, so the easy thing at Community Opportunities, really the mission is fully in the DNA of the organization. There is no doubt when you walk in there, from the receptionist to the direct care specialist, everyone has the mission in mind. And I really saw this when COVID happened. And obviously for an organization like us, COVID wasn't a thing where Mary could say, hey, staff, everybody go home and work remotely, because we are providing direct care. So you had to have people intimately involved, taking care of people 24 hours a day. It was really difficult. So Mary's non-negotiable was that our clients will be cared for. And then we had to work with her as things changed every week. How's it going to be done? And that ended up being a lot of changes in staff compensation, changes in leave that staff could take, really working to do anything to support our staff to stay and take care of our clients during that difficult time.
I think she was just always on top of things. Like we always knew where she stood, and we always knew that she had a voice in Jefferson City. And I think that is something for the new executive director and whoever, you know, comes in this role I would love to, as a community member, I would love to see that to continue. And you shouldn't have to be on the board just to see that work. And that's where I think Mary was so effective in getting into the ear of the politicians and just let them know that how valuable these dollars are. And if we don't have these funds, these are the services we're not going to be able to provide our clients. Definitely our fleet is something I've noticed in the last 5 years that has really improved. I remember many years ago where some of the minivans and some of the cars were fairly dated, and I'm sure they had many, many thousands of miles on them. And now we have very more modern fleet for our clients. And so that's just another area. I think where there was a grant or where there was some type of funding source, Mary always seemed to know where that was. And that to me was very, very impressive. And running a school district, very similar to running the community opportunities, finding those precious resources and then making sure the taxpayers knew that that money was being spent to the best of her ability was always something I never questioned as a board member.
I have two things that are really Mary's legacy. The first is Kiwanis Park. That was really her brainchild. That's what she worked to bring about for the community. And then also for people with developmental disabilities, you know, we don't provide direct services until people are of majority. We don't provide children's services. But Mary's interest in the whole lifespan of people with developmental disabilities helped drive the creation of that park so that we have the inclusive playground and we have the walking path that anyone can use. So that is a legacy for our community. But I think the most important thing Mary did, which kind of doesn't sound good, is that she built an organization that can survive without her. And she has the staff in place, the processes in place. She has a cash reserve that she's leaving the next person. She has really been thoughtful over the last, I would say, a decade of, at some point, I'm going to leave this place, and what needs to be in order so that it can be successful beyond me. And so what I want her to understand is, sadly, we can do this without you. We don't want to, but you've given us the tools so that we can.
Of that, I really loved her vision for the expansion of the operations at the main office. I'll call it, for lack of a better term, the Kiwanis Park too. And I think once Mary made her mind up to something, it was going to get done. And it's hard to tell Mary Sullivan Thomas no. I think people understand the value that not every county has what we have here with community opportunities, and not every county has a very successful Senate Bill 40 board either. Well, I was going to say tenacious, but I think I'll go with just consistent, like day in and day out. And when she wasn't here, she was still working.
If people go to Sacred Heart, they know she has a beautiful singing voice. Maybe everybody else doesn't know that, but I think of her with that talent. And then I think of her with people who don't have a voice, who are not able to advocate for themselves. And Mary has spent a career, not just as CEO of Community Opportunities, but also in her volunteer work. She's done work for the Link to make sure people have transportation. She does work for victims of domestic violence. And she is involved beyond our community in the work to improve lives for everyone with developmental disabilities. And so I think of Mary with a strong voice, a voice for people who can't speak for themselves.